What is a deed of variation and why does it matter? Hi, I'm Kimberly Shapcott, qualified chartered accountant, property investor and entrepreneur. Let's sit down and have a chat. For all of us, it is very important to be putting a will in place. And the reason you put a will in place is because then that puts your wishes of what you would like to happen to follow through once you are no longer around. So I definitely advise that you get a will if you have not got one. However, we want to talk about a deed of variation today. And the reason I mention a will is because a will is the starting point to enable a deed of variation to be put in place. So the first question we need to ask is, what is a deed of variation? Well, a deed of variation is a legal document that a beneficiary of the deceased can put into place. This will then look to change the terms of the will or intestacy rules, which allows them to redirect the inheritance to an alternative person. In effect, it's a family arrangement to redistribute the wealth that has been passed down to different people with everybody's agreement. This is a form that's done after the demise of the person, so therefore it's looking at things after they're no longer here. So it may be things were put in the will that maybe didn't work after tax rule changes, or there's been family changes and they just want to redistribute things how they fit together. So the key purpose of this document is to redirect the inheritance in the will to different beneficiaries who may be within the will at this point in time, or who may be outside the will at the moment, which you want to bring into receiving some sort of inheritance. The people who can use this form are those that are beneficiaries within the will. So they're the people who are already receiving something in the will. It's not open to anyone who is outside that group of persons. A key point that we really need to make on this is to make this agreement stick, to make it eligible to be able to do it. All beneficiaries that are going to be affected by the change must be in agreement. So you can't decide that you're going to do something and the others just have to agree. They all have to be in agreement to sign off on this deed of variation. Obviously, from my perspective, we also need to consider the tax implication. And obviously, if you're changing the will to pass on things to a different individual, there may be tax implications. For all we know at the moment, everything is going to the spouse, which might have been perfect tax planning in the past, but with some of the changes that have happened over a period of the last couple of years, it may be that that isn't really practical anymore because now there is tax to pay. However, if it's redirected in a different direction, there may be no tax to pay, for example, or it may be the opposite direction, that at the moment there is tax payable and you kind of go, we don't want to be paying that tax, so we're going to redistribute that to somebody else, where potentially it was going to children and you go, we don't want to pay the tax, let's put it to the spouse. And then on that basis, mother, father can then gift that money or do something with it, which then has a tax planning advantage to mitigate or minimise any future inheritance tax. So there is a few reasons here why it might be beneficial from a tax point of view to do some shift or variation to the original will. It is important to note that there are time limits. So you can't just do this any time. You need to have this put in place within 2 years of the person passing away. So it's not a matter of you wait 5 years and then you're like, actually we want to change things around. This is something as you prepare the estate documents, as you go through probate, you're putting things together, you look through the will, and then you're looking at putting this in place relatively quickly to enable that change to be put fully into place. The important part is this deed needs to be signed by everyone and witnessed by an appropriate person, and it needs to be signed by all parties involved in the deed so that everyone is in agreement. I'm mentioning this today on my channel because it's quite a useful inheritance tax planning tool if needs be after someone has passed away. This is something that you go to a solicitor to get sorted if you are in need of doing any of these changes. So what are the reasons for this change? Now, the first reason that comes to mind is it may be family arrangements, that someone has left something to a particular person and that person doesn't think it's very fair that they've got as much as they've got, and maybe they want to spread it equally with their siblings, or whether there is more grandchildren than when the original will was written and they've not split it equally between grandchildren. So there is certain things that may impact why, from a family point of view, you just want to make some changes to make it more fairer as you see fit, rather than as the original person wanted to move things around. And obviously with birth, death and different things, there may be changes which mean the will isn't as up to date as it should have been, so you want to make those changes. The next reason is probably comes down to tax, which is my topic of norm, which is with how they've done it with some of the inheritance tax rules changes, it's not been sufficiently updated, and actually there is a larger tax bill than anyone was expecting, because they've not done it in the most tax effective or efficient manner, which kind of means maybe there is a benefit to making a few adjustments, doing the deed of variation, which means from a tax position it's a lot better for the family as a whole, and the funds are going to be ending up more with the family rather than with the taxman in a purely legal manner. If you're looking at this side of things, then potentially have a word with a tax advisor who can advise on what is going to be the right way, so that when it's made the change sticks and you are all happy with the outcome and the lower tax bill that is potentially going to be due. It may be addressing unforeseen circumstances. There may be family changes. It may be that the person who's passed away has been ill for a while and it's taken a period of time, and in that period of time you couldn't update the will because there was no possibility, but actually something has significantly changed, and the deed of variation is a way of just correcting what couldn't be corrected on the will because it was not possible to correct the will. Maybe they've got some sort of dementia or Alzheimer's or something, so the will that they did before they got into a state where they weren't able to make their own decisions, that is set where it is, and maybe you just need to make some adjustments on the basis of family circumstances significantly changing. It may be that you want to look at creating some trust, so rather than putting things in different individuals' names, it may be it is more beneficial to put things into trust, which therefore may mitigate future inheritance tax or future planning to help the family as a whole and on a generational point of view. So there is the option here that you may want to be doing something different, and the person who wrote the will has kept it very simple and given it to individuals, when you look at it, it may be you're going, actually it'd be better in a trust rather than as an individual, for the simple reason that maybe you've already got too much in your name, so you're already going to be affected by inheritance tax, and actually by putting it into a trust, it's taking things out of your pot, so you've not got a bigger problem with your inheritance tax position, and it's moved it into a trust which can be redirected to an appropriate place to ensure that there is no issues from future possibilities. Overall, the deed of variation is a really useful tool to look at how things have been distributed in a will, and the more parties that it's distributed to, potentially it becomes more of a problem. But if there is only a few persons, it's potentially quite a useful way of just redistributing as you see fit if there are discrepancies in what is going to work for individuals, for the family as a whole, to hopefully get things into a good tax position, a good family agreement to move things forward. If you need any help with the deed of variation, then do speak to a solicitor. If you need some support on any inheritance tax planning to figure out what may be the most beneficial route depending what agreements come into place, then speak to a tax advisor. Good luck if you need any help with this side of things. It is not the most positive of topics, but unfortunately death and taxes are two key things in life that we know are definitely there. So hopefully when someone does pass, we can help minimise the tax that may be payable, and also ensure all the right beneficiaries get the appropriate inheritance that they are wanting, entitled to, or that the deceased has wanted to gift to them. Hopefully today you've discovered what a deed of variation is and how it might be a useful tool in your inheritance tax planning. If you have any questions, then please leave a comment. Please like the video and do subscribe to the channel, and let's make tax less taxing.